Good evening. Today is Monday, January 10th, 2022. The time is 6:03 p.m. and this regular meeting of the Romulus Community Schools Board of Education is called to order. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Bergeron. Yes. Terrell. Yes. Kennard. Yes. Piles.
Present.
Evans. Present.
We have a quorum. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First on the agenda, we have the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered routine in nature by the Board of Education and will be acted upon by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items. If any member of the board or citizen requests discussion of an item, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will become the first item of business under the report of the superintendent portion of the agenda. We have approval of meeting minutes. December 13th regular meeting, December 20th closed session, December 27th special meeting, December 29th special meeting. The approval of bills for payment as submitted by the business and finance consultant, Shelby Fryer, in the amount of $837,000 or $837,420.91, and approval of personnel action items submitted by Interim Human Resource Director Dan Scott. We have employment of Sarah Hughley, teacher at Rama, effective January 3rd. Jeremiah Stockdale, teacher at Romulus Elementary, effective January 3rd. And the resignations of Jemana Kadri, accounts payable at central office, effective January 7th. Lauren Phipps, third grade teacher at GSRP, effective December 18th. And Eric Susala, teacher at Romulus Middle School, effective December 17th of 2021. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented? I move that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there support? Support. Moved by Pyle, supported by Kennard. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have public comments. If there is anyone who would like to address the board that hasn't yet filled out a form, I believe they're on the back table. Please do so and bring it to Secretary Evans. Go ahead, Ms. Evans.
Megan Maxwell. I'm a little tall, sorry. Alrighty. Good evening, board members. My name is Megan Maxwell. I am a fifth grade teacher at Wick Elementary, as well as the building representative for the REA at Wick Elementary. You all received a folder, and I just want to go over that with you today. Community members and stakeholders were asked to provide one adjective that best describes the current Board of Education. We received over 200 responses, 150 within the first 6 hours. Some breakdown of the responses, ones that I really want to point to. We received roughly 26% response from community members, roughly 23% of response from parents, and roughly 13% of response from students, either former or present. 99% of respondents provided a negative adjective to describe our board. 0.5% of respondents provided a neutral response, and 0.5% of respondents provided a positive adjective regarding the board. The top adjectives collected: 10 submissions for incompetent, 10 submissions for dysfunctional, 7 for corrupt, 6 for disgraceful, 5 unprofessional, 5 untrustworthy, 4 shady, and 4 embarrassing. It does go on, and you all have the list of all of the responses in regards to the adjectives. I also broke it down into each of the subgroups for you to analyze as well if you need to. Some additional notes for you is that 11 submissions cite the board president by name as the reason for their negative adjectives. 7 additionally cite the board president without name as the reason. 100% of negative commentary pertain only to 4 board members: Piles, Kennard, Evitz, and German. Board members Wester, Terrell, and Bergeron received 100% positive commentary in their feedback. 25 submissions cite the board in one way or another as failing their students. 12 submissions request removal of the 4 board members previously stated. And lastly, several parents indicated a strong desire to remove their student from our district following the board's decision to remove Dr. Edmondson as superintendent and the board's continued refusal to listen to what we are saying as community members and stakeholders. Thank you for your time.
Emily Mautrin.
Good evening, members of the board and community members tonight. I just had a couple, sorry, let me adjust the mic, here we go. I am a building rep, my name is Emily Maturin. I am an REA building rep for Hale Creek Elementary, as well as a 4th grade teacher there, but I am here on behalf of the REA. I wanted to go through the survey results that were sent to the entire community and staff and stakeholders as well as students. So the majority of the responses we got were not even from staff. That was another issue. Of our issues that we've been talking about, we thought, why go through that? Because we've already been speaking out against the things that need to be changing around here. So I want to go through one of the subcategories that Megan went through earlier. So the parents of current or former students. So I have the breakdown of all the comments and as well as the adjectives that were used to describe from parents or guardians of who have children in this school district. Like we said, we had 100% of the negative comments went to 4 of the board members, and the positive ones went to our 3 board members that are voted to put the students first. So a couple of those comments, just to share them out, there's a lot, and you also have them all in your packets. And these are all from parents or guardians who were just asked to describe the current situation of the board and the majority of the board decisions. So a couple things I just wanted to share. It says, I'm definitely pulling my children out of this district, shameful on what's going on. One of the adjectives was untrustworthy. This board's refusal to justify their questionable actions that do not seem to be in the district's best interest, as well as their outright rejection of the input form of parents, students, and district employees, particularly teachers, leads me to believe that the motivations are purely personal. Another adjective was unreliable. This person said that this school board is the worst I've seen yet, as for 4 of the members that are not following what's best interest of the students and staff. Also, another comment, get rid of the people on the board who are there for themselves and not for our children. We've had other adjectives such as useless, catastrophe, dishonest, disaster. There are 4 board members that are bringing us down. German has no right to be on the board. We have one that says Piles needs to go in addition to other board members. We have comments that say far too secretive. Never before have we seen meetings in this manner. Untrustworthy. Dictatorship. Heartless. The majority that voted to terminate the superintendent must be recalled.
Kathleen Zoltowski.
evening. My name is Kylene Zoltowski. I'm an 18-year veteran teacher here at Romulus High School and the REA rep for the building. The section that I have to discuss includes commentary from residents of both Inkster and Romulus, since we have a large portion of Inkster students here. I wanted to try to focus on the ones that really talk about our students, which is something that I don't think gets spoken about enough in these meetings. We talk more about politics and what we want and not what's good for the kids. So let's start with the 4 of the board have failed our community. It is a sad time for this community and the students and staff. They are insensitive to the needs of the staff, students, teachers, and community as a whole. Members seem to lack professional training and are not making decisions in the best interest of the children. The district may need financial management from the state of Michigan. If we continue with this board, Romulus schools will be no longer. The board is really discouraging to me as a resident. I'm sad that the chronicles of the Pyle saga has taken us down this path. Specific to no ALICE training, no regard for student needs, more security at board meetings than in the schools, no plans to move forward. 4 members want to run our school, pathetic. Goes on to talk about transparency. The kids are not being put first among all of this drama and issues created well before Dr. E. Instead of solving the money issues, the president and her gang just spend more. The 4 members have rushed to decisions without making all information with no regard for the full truth. They are poorly representing our community. Remember, you are elected officials. The 4, they need to go. They hurt our kids and our community. Flat out dishonest. With a lack of set of problem-solving skills and strategies in a professional manner, this job is a way too big for many of them. The major problem is that they think they are doing a good job. So I guess for me, and there's a lot more to this, is really just we lose sight of why we're all here. I come to this building every day not to just collect a paycheck, because I could do something else with my 2 degrees than teach at the salary that I make and make a lot more money. I come here because it's for the kids. That's why I'm here. They are my children. I never refer to them as students. They are my kids. They're always my kids. I refer to them as my kids in my Google Classroom. I refer to them as my kids when I talk to their parents on the phone. They're mine. When they are here, they're my responsibility, and I care for them as if they belong to me.
Rita Hampton.
I'm just going to mention 3 things. First of all, I'm going to mention that I didn't like how on December 27th, it was brought up about one of the other trustees, or I'll just say one of the board members. Someone said she was under arrest after another board member passed a note to her friend so he could come and say that. I thought it was disgusting and despicable. And I saw the note pass. I'll just say that, despicable. That's how you treat your board members, and you're not even together. That showed the whole community that you're not even together. And to say, do something like that, and then you're going to try to deny it. Like hang around with like. If one lie, they all lie. Number 2, if you want to see something entertaining, go to the 27th meeting and scroll down to 604 and see the comedy that went on when it was grand collusion. They put on more miles for the 4 or the 3, and I thought they were going to walk to Ohio to the bathroom carrying phones under napkins. I mean, it was just ridiculous. It's 18 minutes. That's all I'm going to say. You watch it and you tell me what you saw. The last thing, that I watched the whole 27th date, December 27th, 2021. And I keep hearing about the U.S. Department of Education coming. When they come, board members, would you please alert me so I can be here to tell my side, and also some community members, because I'm tired of hearing that lie. I'm tired of waving the red flag, you know, the red one to get everybody, oh, they're coming, they're coming. I'm tired of hearing it. So when they come, board members, please allow me to be here so I can say something also, and we can all contribute, and they're just not hearing one side and one lie. Thank you.
Is that it, Ms. Evans? Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Is there anyone else who would like an opportunity to speak? Seeing no other public participation, we will move to our presentation. We'd like to welcome Debbie Stair with MASB, who's with us tonight and is going to present training options for the board. Thank you for being with us tonight, Debbie.
Oh, it looks like I have a Vanna. Are you going to be advancing my slides, or am I going to be able to do that? Okay, I'm not real sure that the board. Oh, you can see them from that camera, right, or that screen. First, my name is Debbie Stair. For those of you that I have not met before, I am the Assistant Director for Leadership Development at MASB. I've been on staff for now almost 9 years, but prior to that, I was a board member like yourselves. I served over 15 years in my local district, served at the ISD level, and served on MASB's board of directors. And so although 9 years doesn't seem like a lot of experience at the association, I think my history really adds to that. So I want to thank you for allowing me to come in and speak with you this evening. I really do believe that your membership association can provide some support and some help to this board. So with that, if we can advance the slide. I honestly believe that you're at a crossroads. In conversations with my executive director, we had quite a conversation about the fact that you have a choice to make. You can continue this way, the way things are currently going, or you can choose a different path. It's no secret that this board, when I was actually thinking about comments, I was going to say that this board is divided, and that is an understatement. This board is fractured. And in no way am I coming to you this evening with a quick fix, because this is not a quick fix. This is something that's going to take a lot of work by a lot of people. But this uncertainty and this relationship is not serving your community or your students well. And we're here to say we would like to help in that situation. Clearly, your community is asking for effective leadership, and that means that we have to find a way for this board to work together for the interests of the community and students. So where is it that we actually go from here? If I could have the next slide. What I want to talk about with you is about the Iowa Lighthouse study. So believe it or not, in all the years of education, there have been tons of research studies around what effective superintendents do and principals and teachers. But it wasn't until the early 2000s that there was a research study undertaken about what is it that effective boards do to have a positive influence on student achievement. And I have to believe deep down in my heart as a former board member that you all ran because you wanted to have a positive effect on student achievement in your district. Now, what that looks like today is something different, but that's why you ran. And this study really looked at what is it that effective boards do? And what is the difference between that and other boards who are not having that positive effect? So all of the work that we would do moving forward together is based on this research. So it's about best practices, things we know to be true about how you can work more effectively for the benefit of your students. It gets boiled down into what NSBA calls their key work. Some of you may be familiar with that process, but it really highlights on the 5 areas that boards need to really zero in on to have that positive impact. Things like vision, accountability, your role as policymakers, community leadership, and then the relationships that a board has, both internal and external. If you could switch to the next slide. We have some tools that I believe would support our work. The first one being the board self-assessment. Now, I sort of looked up in my records, and you may have taken another self-assessment over the years, but to my knowledge, you have never taken MASB's board self-assessment. And we've had it in place since 2014. It's something we recommend on an annual basis, where each one of you would take the assessment individually. We would put together a report, and then we would really finalize what this governance training model would look like based on what we know to be effective practices, and then what the board is telling me about how things are working. So that would be the first thing that I would recommend. The second one we would be using are NSBA's 8 traits of effective boards. And MASB's governance standards. I know that it was brought to the board in the summer to approve those standards, but I'm not so sure that we really worked through what they were all about and how they play out here. And so I think that deserves some real discussion. And then another tool that I believe would be useful to you all would be the DISC behavioral assessment, where we can get a better understanding of our own styles and how we can better communicate with each other. So those are just some tools in the mix. Some of the topics for conversation I think that we really need to look at. First is you can change the slide, please. One of the first things I think we really need to clarify is our roles and responsibilities as board members, and really get a clear understanding of what those various roles are, describing the differences between the board and superintendent, again, identifying those characteristics of what an effective team is, and then leading into the importance of resolving conflict. Conflict is always going to be present. How we handle it is what makes us an effective team or not. The second area of discussion, I believe, would be effective governance behaviors, where we would really explore the dimensions of effective boardsmanship, right? We'd identify those characteristics of effective boards. We would, again, go back to those board behavior styles, really hoping to help you learn how to function within the group and how each of you has a role to play and to contribute to the work that you do at the table and away from the table. The third topic would really be about structures that support effective governance. So I'm talking about expectations for behavior, protocols. So the way we treat each other, the way we do work together, where we would actually identify and agree to some norms for this board, and we would mutually develop some protocols in some areas that I would say at this point are giving us probably more than heartburn in our work together. And last but not least, again, depending upon what the board self-assessment says, but planning, goal setting, and monitoring progress. I think it's really important for this board to foster an understanding of those items and how they move the district forward, and learn the importance of around planning and goal setting, again, understanding the role of the board in that work, and taking a look at your current goals and progress, in the past and moving forward. If you could turn the next slide. So one thing you didn't hear me talk about in all of this is team building. And I'm not talking about the kumbaya, come together kind of teamwork. But what I am talking about are some of the components that are listed here. I think throughout the work that we would do together in learning about your role as leaders in the community and what that looks like and should look like to instill confidence by your staff, your students, and your community members. Having a goal, a common vision for this district and your work in it, motivated to do what's necessary to work together. I'm not talking about 7-0 votes. That's not going to happen here. But what I am talking about is an atmosphere of collaboration to where we're going to do what we have to do to get the work done to serve the students in this community. That takes some cooperation, and it certainly takes communication. And it's through those pieces that you actually get to what looks like a team. It's not fancy frilly, exercises, right, that are just for team building sake. It's about going through these processes together, having good, deep, honest conversation with each other, and moving to a place where you can figure out how to work through your disagreements. And it's all of those things that come together to really help promote and get back to an atmosphere here of working in the best interest of students and the community. So I know it's kind of high-level overview of what we're proposing. Again, that's because I really want to take a look at what that board self-assessment tells me. I have watched some of your board meetings. Obviously, I'm a reader of the news. And, so I know some things. It would also include conversations with each one of the board members individually to get various perspectives. So there's a lot of work that's going into this, and it may be even more than just myself or one facilitator. I'm looking at probably several facilitators over the course of the period of time working together to support this board. So with that, I would just open it up to any questions that you might have for me.
Thank you very much for that, Debbie. Are there any questions from board members regarding the training, the offerings, direction? Mr. Bergeron?
I'm kind of wondering what is going on. When you sit down and do talk about issues and things like that, there's several sides to that particular issue, okay? And to this day, I don't understand how this board got to the position they're in with such a negative attitude. With all due respect, that's my opinion. With these bad attitudes and firing and hiring people left and right. That's not right. That is not right. And so to bring you in, okay, I don't want to have nothing to do with any of you until we get this problem taken care of. And it's got to be done with the people here. It can't be, from yourself, and I just say to you that until we get this resolved, you're going to have that problem. You're going to have the problem with people leaving this community because they're leaving in droves right now.
Well,
I don't know what you can do.
so I'm here at an invitation, and because of a conversation with your Wayne Risa superintendent and my executive director, both who acknowledge, along with myself, that we want to be part of the solution, not a part of the problem. And that will mean a commitment by multiple people in this group. And
By who, though? That's,
I'm talking about all of you.
no, I don't think so. Well,
Mr.
I know
Bergeron?
the president of RISA, okay? I know, okay?
I'm talking about the superintendent. But
Pardon me?
I'm talking about the superintendent of Wayne Risa, but
That's what I'm talking about.
I said I know that individual.
okay.
I play golf with him. Okay, but I'm just saying that
I'm not here to make anybody do anything, right? I'm here to say that we believe we can be of some assistance if you want us to be of assistance. Like I said at the beginning, you have two choices. Continue doing what you're doing or do something different.
We're gonna lose it anyway.
You don't know until you try.
You know, and with all due respect, ma'am, you don't know this district. Say you do, okay? Because I'm gonna come back at you because I've been in this school district for 70 years. 70. I know this city inside and out, and not one person up here knows it better than me. I'll guarantee you that. I'll guarantee you that. You cannot, and the only way that I'm gonna listen to you is that if you take a effort by everybody here. Okay, by everybody here, because I'm not gonna waste my time coming up and talking with Risa or whoever.
I think I mentioned that there would be individual conversations with each board member
Yeah,
to get perspectives.
yeah,
And, I work in districts across the state. I'm not going to stand up here and say I know Romulus like the back of my hand. I'm agreeing to that. But what I do know is governance. I have a master's degree in governance.
let's swap ideas.
And so I'm here to provide some assistance if this board wants it. And if the board is not ready to accept that assistance, that's a choice you get to make. Right? I mean, I'm not here to argue. I'm here to try and help.
Trying to get, whether or not a point can get across. I don't think it can. With what we've been through over the last, 7, 8 months. How can you do that?
Well, I have seen other boards move past differences of the past to concentrate on the future.
And whether
It's a
that's right, wrong,
choice.
or indifferent, no matter how we feel, that's the way it is.
I'm not saying that. You're putting words in my mouth.
No, I'm not. I'm really not. But if you're gonna help us, then you have to help all of us.
That's what I'm offering. I'm not on anybody's side here, except the kids and the community.
Who invited you?
It was due to a conversation between the RISA superintendent and my executive director, who then we reached out to your president because that is who designs the agenda. And so I'm here at that invitation. It doesn't mean I'm taking any sides in this. But that's how I have to get invited to the meeting. I can't just come in and offer our support. I have to be invited to the meeting.
And I'm sorry if I sound a little harsh, but I'm telling you what, I got on this board to improve this community, and this community has gone back 15 steps since I got on here. Okay? Especially about the superintendent. You got 4 people up here that don't like him, and that's their privilege. But don't ruin our district because you don't like somebody. Because somebody is talking about you behind, you're talking to me about somebody behind closed doors. And that's what they're doing. And so anyway, I'd love for you to have a response. I'd love for, to get some involvement. But I'm telling you what, it's not gonna be a one-way street as long as I'm sitting here.
Well, like I said, we're offering support to the entire board. Go ahead, Ms. Terrell.
I wanted to speak, but I said that I was going to wait until after we brought the motion, but highly respected. The training that's offered, highly respected. But you said some key things that really struck me in a manner that I would respond the way Mr. Bergeron responded. Community relations, employees, our students. So what really magnifies in my mind is trust. Month after month after month, there have been board members that have pleaded with this board to listen to what is being said, to act based on our stakeholders' reaction. And it was completely ignored to the point that all of our central office staff has turned over. They're no longer there. Committed employees that have been with this district through a lot left. And then we have students that are leaving. I feel, and I don't like coming off as a negative, but I feel that I don't know how you would be able to help us at this point. I feel like it would be a waste of money because all of the training that we have had as board members, some through MASB, the training that we've had, the pleas that we have had, the lies that have been told, it's not going to allow us to be able to come together and work collaboratively and address and build and work as a team, because that requires trust. There is no trust. There is no trust right now. It's gone. And as Mr. Bergeron said, we have students, parents that are pulling their students out of this district. We have employees that are leaving this district. And until there's a change in the board structure, I don't see that we would be able to benefit. I just see it as a way of throwing more money out of the window. And so I appreciate you coming in and outlining the benefits. But I just feel like no matter what is said, if it's not with an agenda of tearing down, there won't be a building up. And that's where we are. So I just want to say that I believe the organization can, the training of this nature could be effective, but with a different board. I dreaded coming in here today. It took everything. I am so heartbroken with everything that has taken place and the fact that we are where we are now. Because our students are going to be impacted. They have been impacted. And I just don't see at this point that there is a way to build back, not how we are right now. It won't be heard. And there will not be any time that, I mean, this is something that has gone on month after month after month. And even as Ms. Hampton just said, at the board table and then leaving out and going back there to do more things that's just not right. And I'm not talking about me, but to collaborate and behind closed doors and then coming out here, I don't see a path forward in this manner. And maybe sometime down the line we will be at that place, but I truly appreciate you delivering that presentation.
I appreciate your comments and your perspective. What I would say is that, you know, who's going to sit at the board table is going to play itself out. And obviously, you know, I have no control over that. What I would like to say is whether this board is ready today or tomorrow, with this board makeup or another, we stand ready to be of support.
I'd like to speak to the broken trust. We have a lot of broken trust among groups, within our district, among individuals on the board. And Ms. Terrell, I agree with your point that we can't just rebuild. We have to tear down. We have to tear down the strongholds. We have to tear down the perceptions. We have to tear down, you know, everything that is false, and also tear down the things that are true that need to be changed. And I believe, in spite of everybody who sits at this table sits here because we individually and collectively truly care about students and want to make Romulus Community Schools the best educational experience it can be for all of our students. We can't wait until we get down the road to start. We are half a year into this year. If we can come to a point where, as a group, we don't have to agree on everything, but do we agree on anything? Is there anything that every single one of us can commit to? Can we commit to having productive conversations that are student-focused and centered on children and not adults, not people, not personalities? Can we commit to expressing views and disagreeing with each other, but still doing it respectably? Can we commit to that? We don't have to hang out outside of here. We don't have to forget anything or ignore it. We need to be brave enough to have these tough conversations so that we can begin to heal. And it's going to hurt, but it hurts now. But can we commit to working for students? We have to. We have to. Because right now, today, the 7 of us are serving this district. Serving is the operative word. So we don't have to go big and bold, and I'm not saying pretend or go through motions. That will not serve us or anybody in this district or community well. But is there anything basic we can have as a starting point that we can all agree on and start there? And not for each other, but for the students, for the staff, for the people. Mr. Bergeron.
I've been on this board for, 5 months, 6 months now. Not one time have we brought up about the kids. And I know that, we are all preoccupied on something. I got a heck of a lot better stuff to do for my life right now, okay, than to come in board meetings in and out. But you know what? I did it for my community. I did it for the kids of this community, period. You can go any place in this city, and I'm known in that area of the city because I've been involved. But Debbie, the thing is that you can't say you're going to be a part of something, okay, and on one side you're being a part of it, and the other side we're being against it, and we just showed that last week. I don't want to, I don't want to continue to get in arguments with you and Sue and, whoever, because I don't think that's healthy either. But the bottom line is, I want to get to a bottom of something before we go on, because that is not going to do us any good, in my opinion, or our students. And our students are suffering more than anybody right now. They didn't like the old superintendent. I didn't know him that well. I got to know him. But the bottom line is that we have to be together on who we're going to run this district. We've been doing it for the last 4 years. Well, I don't know the other guy's name, but he was a superintendent of schools. Now what's he doing? He's suing us. We're getting sued from all over the place. We got to stop that. We have to stop that. So.
I agree. So where we are today, Mr. Bergeron, can we come together and say we want to get to the bottom? I'm not saying sweep anything under the rug. Let's get to the bottom of it. Let's have courageous conversations, but let's do it respectfully for a bigger purpose than ourselves.
Well, Debbie, and I appreciate that, but the bottom line is that, I see something going on and I don't like it, and I don't have enough sense to keep my mouth shut. Okay? With all due respect. The bottom line is, though, is that we got to put these kids in front. I don't give a damn what the superintendent did. I don't care. But now I'm hearing from all kinds of. I've heard from John Sobey. I didn't tell them to fire him. Now what are we supposed to do? I'm just saying. I heard it right from his mouth. Okay. And so anyway, I come to a board meeting and we're being told that we should get rid of him because he's not doing his job. He's doing his job. But you can't, Debbie, you cannot continue to write articles and write information about what the superintendent's doing. He's got a full-time job. He's got a full-time job, and he's being demanded by you and Sue, I believe, is to, So anyway, by you two going out and writing him text messages and emails and doing it 5, 6, 7, 8 times a day. He's the superintendent of schools. know, and believe it or not, that's what I care about. I don't care about anything else. I don't, you know, with all due respect, I'm here for these kids in this community. I'm here for some of these teachers, I don't want no applaud or anything, for some of these teachers, okay, that are taking care of our students. So anyway.
We are in agreement there. We're in agreement. So we can't go back. Let's go forward. Let's go forward. And you know what? We do. We don't just care about students. We have an obligation. We've been charged with a tremendous responsibility for our students. What can we do better today than we did yesterday? And how can we be better tomorrow? Can you commit to that?
With all due respect, with that attitude, okay, I'm not gonna debate you on that, because I firmly believe that you're trying to do the best that you can, okay, with what you have. But on the other hand, I'm looking at a completely different standpoint. I'm looking at it, what are we gonna do for these students of this community? What are we going to do? Okay, I don't wanna hear no more about this superintendent or that. What, we gonna go through another 3 or 4 superintendents? It's not right. It's not right. Let him do his job, let him, if he's not doing a good job, after his term's up, get out. Now we got 2 superintendents suing us. I mean, what? It doesn't make sense.
Ms. Kennard?
Debbie,
I'm sorry.
can I say something?
Did you? Yes, go ahead, Mr. McNatt.
So, first, am I on? First, thank you, Debbie, for being here. I think I've attended a couple of your classes in the past. I've had the fortune to sit with board members of mine in the past and go through some of your classes. I distinctly remember a couple being roles and responsibility. I'm sorry, my voice is gone. Hopefully it holds up. And over the years, I've seen the different programs you guys have put on. Do they still have the workshop, superintendent and board president?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
I think that would be a good one to start with as well. Thanks, David. I think that would be a good one to start with the president, and it was a spring workshop. It's a really good workshop, and it talks a lot about the roles and responsibilities between the two. I know that sitting up here, this is a fairly new board. It's a fairly new president. No disrespect. I think you were, what, April, May, right? So it's not even a full year yet. That would be a good place. At the same time, having been a part of a team that brought in, and I love MSB. You know, I've attended a lot of classes. But I think right now, our community listens. That professional development, that different organization, where you have teachers, administrators, central office, and board members go through multiple days over a period of time with follow-up groups, was something that I've seen become personal and reach the hearts and minds of the members that sat around the table. A deeper understanding of everyone who was a part of the team. And it built relationships from a starting platform from that point going forward as well. And that's one thing I would recommend, as well as the board president workshop. So, and I think that if the board decides now's not the time to bring you in, I think that would be a good time for roles and responsibilities from you to this entire Board of Education. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Superintendent McNatt. I didn't specifically speak to any additional trainings. I was simply talking tonight about the group trainings. But yes, we do have Board President's Workshop. We always encourage superintendents to attend any of our trainings because of that importance of the relationship between the board and the superintendent. So with that, if there aren't any other questions of me.
Does anyone else have questions for Debbie before we move on?
I would just like to say thank you for your presentation. I look forward to working as a team with this board. Mr. Bergeron, just to let you know, I've never said I do not like Dr. Edmondson. Never said it. nor will I ever say it, okay? This was a working relationship, a professional relationship. I have requested all emails to everyone that is left that have said, it's the board. Let me tell you, I've sent 5 emails combined to those 4 people requesting information since I've been on the board for a year. Okay? So enough. I did not pass any notes to Debbie the other day. She asked for papers. I gave her some papers to write on. I shouldn't have to justify myself what I do at the table. Everybody sits here, uses their phones. Every meeting. Every meeting, someone is using their phone or their PDA. And for someone to look at me and say I pass notes, that's unacceptable and it is not true.
So, again, I would, there are a lot of different options. I mean, RISA has different series that we can do, and they provide books. We had Dr. Razmirsky come in and speak with us. At the time, this board had a strong preference for MASB. And Mr. McNatt, to your point, the board president and superintendent training is valuable. And even if we did the board president workshop together, there are so many things, but we need to get to a point where we can even embrace the learning and have it impactful. And so I would encourage board members to consider starting this. We know that what we're doing right now isn't working. And we know that, Mr. Bergeron, to your point, what are we doing for students? I agree with you. In order for us to do anything for students, we have to be our best selves individually and collectively. Because right now, we're not that. And I firmly believe that we can all do better. And so I am asking the board to consider, we aren't the only troubled district with a fractured board. There have been other boards who have been like this and worse. And they've come together, and I want to promise you, I'm not saying sweep anything under the rug. I am not saying that I have been perfect. I want to be better too. Call me out, but call me in to call me out with a bigger objective than just attacking each other. I believe that you really do want us to do stuff for students. So let's get better together so that we can do that. And we can utilize this last semester that we have. And trust, Davida Colbert contacted me. And she told me she was going to contact Don. And that is how Debbie and I talk. But Debbie's not here to co-sign for me at all. And she'll call me out. And I want that. I want to be better, Pete. I really do. What's being recommended is a series, and it's not just a canned training. That is one thing that I requested, that we have something customized for us. This is not just a let's check it off and say we did it. Let's get something where we can go in, and it's going to hurt and it's going to be uncomfortable. But my gosh, the end result is so worth it. It's the lives of children. It's the lives of children, and we can all agree on that. So what we have, if you look at your motion sheet, Debbie, are you still recommending a 5 series training session?
Yes, customized depending upon the results and other information that we know to be good information and best practices.
Okay, it would start with the board assessment individual and conversations with individual board members.
Yes.
And then it would be developed. So would this be, how often would these training sessions be held? What would you recommend?
I think that's yet to be determined. I think we have to see, the appetite of the board.
Okay.
And the commitment level, because again, we can't do this work if we don't have the commitment of the board members and the superintendent.
Right.
Interim or permanent at any point. So, yeah.
Okay. So our motion sheet reads, there are blanks to fill in the dates with. We don't have to do all of that tonight, but could we agree that we would embark on this training session with the intent of at least trying the first step of the individual assessments, the board assessments, the conversations, and see how that goes. I'll make the motion. I move that the Board of Education schedule up to 5 board training sessions with MASB facilitator Debbie Stair as follows. Those will be determined. The 5 sessions will run 4 to 5 work sessions, and it will not exceed $4,125 plus expenses. Is there support?
Support.
Moved by Piles, supported by Evans. Any final questions or comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, will you please? Oh, we're all in person, I'm sorry. All in favor of the MASB facilitated training session, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Did you vote, Mr. Pert? Did you vote?
No, I plan on getting involved with this, but
Okay.
from the standpoint that if it doesn't fix something, I'm not getting involved.
Okay. I just didn't hear you, but yeah.
Pardon me?
I just didn't hear you. That's why I was asking if you voted. But yes, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Bergeron.
Again, let me just say, thank you for allowing me to come in this evening and have this conversation with you. I will send out information on our next steps together, and be with you, shortly to do that. So, thank you for giving us a chance. I thank you for putting your trust in us to be supportive, and, again, we do look forward to working with you and supporting this board. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's to Nicole. Next, we have the report of the interim superintendent, Mr. McNatt. The floor is yours.
Looks like I need this more tonight than any other night with my voice, so bear with me. So you have in your packet from Wayne Risa School Board Recognition Resolution for, as you know, January is School Board Appreciation Month. So you have their resolution in front of you. And I'm going to move on to number B now. So, and for first, let me just say thank you, everyone, for your time that you serve on this board. I know it's been a difficult year for you. B, district updates. I met with Cabinet this morning. We discussed that COVID virus has had an impact on our staff and our students. And the number of staff members that is being reported to have COVID is rising. And of course, as you know, the time, we're still practicing not the CDC 5-day out, but the 10 days. And so with those people who are telling us that they're going to be out for 10 days, we know how long it's going to carry into the future. And so we announced today that we are extending the virtual learning through January 28th. Hopefully students will be back January 31st, the Monday. We're doing this enough time to give parents so they can make adjustments, as well as our staff, especially at the secondary level, who have exam schedules to do. We talked about that today in Cabinet. Last year, we did do online exams, and so we think by telling everyone in advance, we'll be able to make the adjustments as well. I want to share with you that we have Rama's MLK Day celebration coming up Monday, January 17th. This is still scheduled to take place. There are some modifications from past celebrations, such as they're not doing as much with students. And if I recall, we're not doing the pancake, correct? We're not doing the pancake breakfast like we used to do as well. It starts in the morning at 7:30, and with the march begins at 8 o'clock, and then goes on to 10 o'clock at the Rama High School auditorium. And I want to let everyone know that the keynote speaker is our very own interim executive director of instruction for Ramos Community Schools, Mr. Nelson Henry. So, congratulations. I consider the Continental, it is happening, correct, Mr. Henry? But it's not the typical pancake one, so. And it's being sponsored by the Ramos Rotary Club, so. Yes.
Before you move on, a couple questions on that. During the remote learning, what is the status of the student extracurricular activities, the sports, any other programs? Are they still practicing and having games, or?
We are still having the games, and with that in mind, we are limiting the crowds. And so they're limiting to 2 per child, per athlete that can be in attendance.
Okay,
So.
thank you. And with us being out then through the end of the month, is there any update on meal distribution, how we will get food to our students?
Yeah, we're going to get to that in a minute. So it's part of the plan, and I've got someone who's going to help me save my voice tonight. So
Okay.
we'll get that in just a moment.
Thank you.
Okay. So thank you. With that being said, Bill, would you share on the meals? And this will give me a break.
Evening, board. Well, update on our food distribution. We had our single biggest day today we've ever had in Romulus history since the onset of COVID. Our amazing food service team distributed over 450 meals. And these are 5-day meals, so that's significant. And we still fell a little short. So chef's making it up. He's going to make some extra meals to make sure all the families are served. I think that really speaks to the need of our community when we're this far into the pandemic and we're still needing to supply that much assistance to our students. Did you want me to also speak on Merriman?
Yes, go ahead. I didn't offer later, but yes.
Okay, since I'm here. Interim Superintendent Mr. McNatt had me and Mr. Barfeld go into Merriman last week to do an inspection, limited inspection. We just wanted to make sure boilers were working. Dr. Proctor was very cooperative. We were able to make a limited assessment, but based on that, we asked that we could actually have a more significant assessment. So we'll be going tomorrow to do an assessment on the mechanical systems, and there's obviously some issues that we're going to need to address. So with that being said, we'll probably be going there Wednesday and Thursday to get those systems up and running so that at least we protect our asset. And there are a lot of issues there still. The roof is very old. It was past the end of its life 5 years ago. So we're also going to just do some inspections there too and see if we have to do some minor roof repairs as well.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
With these mechanical issues, are they as a result of negligence on the lease, on the parties?
I can't speak to that right now,
Okay.
but I will say this. All these mechanical systems, they need constant PMs and work done on them. So we spend a lot of time doing that. So I can't speak to it yet because we haven't done the assessment. But whether it's negligence or just not having the knowledge of how to handle it, I can't say. But when we did turn the building over, remember it was turned over in the summer with it as is. And there were some things that weren't working at that time because we had power outages. So we'll give a report to the board on what we have to do and what we have to repair. And but we have to secure the asset now. We have to make sure that we don't have a catastrophe.
Have they vacated?
Not to my knowledge, I don't believe so. I met their maintenance person there the other day. We'll be meeting him again. I believe they're still using the facility. I'm not privy to where we are, other than Mr. McNatt explained that they had been given 30-day notice, and I don't believe the 30 days is up yet. It is up? Okay. So the answer is they haven't fully vacated, no.
Thank you.
Ms. Evans, to answer your question, the notice is up and the complaint was filed and the hearing date is scheduled for January 24th. I emailed that notice, but if it's buried, I'll send that again. So, yes, Mr. Garland, a question I have is, did you just look at certain areas, or were you able to go through the entire building and look at it? I know that Mr. Haver said there was an interested buyer. Were you able to assess the whole building and see what kind of a condition it's in?
No, we're going to do that tomorrow. We wanted to make sure that the boilers were functional. And it was good to see that both boilers were operating. That means that there's no major damage to the piping in the building. Otherwise, the water would not stay in the boiler system. It's a complete loop. So, but we did not do a full tour at that time, but we will be doing that tomorrow.
Thank you. Does anyone else have questions for Mr. Garland?
Madam President, first, I don't know if you had anything to do with this, Mr. Garland, but thank you very much if you did. We're receiving, I know I got a couple of robocalls pertaining to the school district in terms of what was happening with the food distribution, as well as, you know, the school closure, the COVID, and so forth. Previous to this, we were not, if some of the board members, or not if all, I know that, you know, as a resident of Romulus, we were not privileged to that just because, you know, I don't have any children that's in the district, although I'm part of the board. So I did receive that, and I thought it was very, I was happy to have gotten that information and staying in the loop. You know,
Well,
so
I
to
think
speak.
you can give that
So
credit
whoever
to that amazing man right there, Mr.
I want to
Cooper.
thank you very much for including us in the loop.
Yes.
Yeah.
So my question pertaining to the food distribution, is that a combination of breakfast, lunch? Is there a time schedule where those who are receiving, where is a cutoff time so they can be aware and be more time conscious?
Yeah, that's something else I have to give credit to Mr. Cooper and Chef for. Chef gave us the schedule, put the meals together. They are breakfast and lunch. Mr. Cooper made an amazing little tidbit to put on our website for parents, and we all gave him a little hand, giving him credit for how many families picked it up today because of that great presentation he did. So, but I really have to give credit to our food service team. They're limited. They've had some cases as well, and they're working really hard to make sure we get these meals out to families. And chefs had to step up things, especially we went virtual right away. And, you know, we came back from Christmas and we didn't have product in our freezers. So it was pretty amazing the way things came together. And I know sometimes when you're not that close to it, it seems like it's an easy thing, but it's not easy to feed all these kids and make sure that the food can get to them. And I'll tell you, even one parent, he missed the box and we didn't have enough that day. Chef went and made sure that he got the box ready. He has 5 children, and he came the next day and Chef had it for him. So I really was grateful for that too. They're going the extra mile.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great, going the extra mile. And also, data, you know, data and numbers is my thing. So information such as that, when I saw it on the website, okay, very good step, you know, in letting those know where we are and what we're doing in that category. So thank you very much. Mr. Cooper.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, board.
Moving on, I wanted to let you know that in working with Shelby Fryer, I've asked her to assist us in finding a substitute for accounts payable, because that position recently became vacant. And today, there was someone that we were introduced to, and I cannot remember, it's not an edu staff, but it's a hiring company, and I forgot the name of that, but that person came in today to get to her through the district and so forth. So thank you, kudos to Shelby for assisting us in finding that quick turnaround replacement. Also, I want to let you know that I have located through an email, and I have found out where we can get the rapid antigen tests and so forth, and through the health department, and I'm working with them, and we have to put a person who's going to be in charge per school, and so that's on tomorrow's agenda to get done. And then from there, we'll be able to have that, and then we're going to be talking about who is going to be giving those out and how we're going to be using those test kits. Also, at the same time, as you know, you guys passed the RFP for security services. That will be up on the website tomorrow morning. He's giving me the thumbs up. Cooper, we had to find the RFP, and then we talked to Shelby today. Shelby attended the cabinet meeting for the first time, and we talked to Shelby about it and her name is going to be in there too as a contact. And so we've got everything drafted, revised, and it'll be up tomorrow morning. And then I guess at this point, we're going to be tapping. Tracy Richardson has done a lot. He was the person that we tapped to be the Rama's Early Childhood Center supervisor. And he has done a lot in his past and with other districts and helping and writing emergency operation plans and ALICE training. So we're kind of tapping him for a little bit of both that. And with that being said right now, I'm going to turn it over to Nelson because I've charged him with some of the ALICE training coming through the district in the future. So he's going to give you a brief update on where we're at.
Good evening, Board. On Tuesday, January 4th, I met with Tracy Richardson, who is currently serving as our interim director of RECC, but he also has a wealth of knowledge as it relates to ALICE training and emergency operation plans. We had discussed some things in cabinet, and we were kind of going on one train of thought, but pulling from his expertise, we were able to come up with something that was specifically tailored to Romulus. There were concerns and emails that were sent to the board president, to the interim superintendent, to myself as interim executive director of instruction over the break, and so we definitely wanted to make sure we responded to those. Not just reactively for what happened in Oxford and other places, but because we need to provide safe learning environments for our students and safe places to work. So with that in mind, how that theory is becoming practical is that Tracy Richardson has been working with Bill Garland to conduct physical risk assessments of all of our buildings. So he is physically walking around all of our buildings and assessing what the buildings look like, and it's going to make suggestions to us. The principals have been tasked from me in the Office of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment to put together crisis teams, 5 to 7 member crisis teams that they are to have done no later than this Thursday. Tracy Richardson and I will meet with all of the crisis teams. Our initial meetings will be this coming Friday. So we will have asynchronous instruction throughout the district, so we're able to meet with these teams just to have initial conversations so we can tailor and meet the needs of our individual buildings as well as the district as a whole. And that is the initial rollout of the ALICE training, and then we will do other things from there of getting into the training, but we had to develop the teams first. We're going to do it at central office and RECC the following week on January 21st and continue to roll out the plan from there.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Henry? Thank you very much. Mr. McNatt, one question I had, when we talk about the kits for the buildings, are we also going to submit for the Michigan Backpack Program for kids to go home with students for families to use at home? Or are we only looking at the kits for the inside our buildings?
I guess that'll determine on how many is available and how many we're able to get. So, because it might be that, I know some schools are using those for their athletic programs as well, to keep those going, so we might have to, so it'll be based on the number. So, once we get the number, then the team will come together and decide who's gonna do the test and how they're gonna either go home or stay with part of the buildings, so.
Okay, thank you.
You wanted me to
You can
talk?
go ahead.
Okay.
You can talk about it, yes.
So I'm going to talk about the next one, which is the school resource officer. I've had several conversations with City of Romulus Police Chief, and we're both in agreement. We like to see this as something that would come back to the school district. He does not, last time we talked, he does not have approval from his township at this time, but he believes that roughly it would be approximately just around $35,000 to do this for the rest of this school year. And that would be a student, a school resource officer. So they have a lot of different, this would be a proactive approach. The mission of the SRO program is included in your packet. And also the purpose.
Madam President, recommend motion.
Yes, Ms. Kennard.
Move that the Board of Education approve 3-year agreement with the City of Romulus for the school resource officer commencing January 10th, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2025. Annual cost for the first year of July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2022 is estimated at a cost between $35,000 and $36,000. This is a prorated rate of $70,519 with an increase on total for the second year and a 2% increase for the third year, which represents 100% cost for 41 weeks a year. The rationale, please see the presented agreement in the details in the board packet. Please note that the cost for this year, which ends June 30th, 2022, will be prorated at a cost between $35,000 and $36,000. The budget implications is the general fund, and the exhibits is in the board packet.
Thank you. Moved by Kennard. Is there support?
Support.
The floor is open for discussion. If anyone has any questions, comments, concerns.
Madam President.
Ms. Kennard.
Okay, so we did have the resource officer with the district about in 2019. I do recall that. And then we ended that and we created school ambassadors. So the ambassadors' role pertaining to the school officer, and I guess I'm asking the interim superintendent, you know, what is the relation between the two, if anything different? What happens to the ambassadors? What are their roles? And how is this affecting what we already have in place?
Yes, and I would say probably the biggest difference between the school ambassadors and an SRO, and I would point to the recent unfortunate event that happened in Oxford Community Schools. One of the reasons why that was able to put the rest so quickly is because they had an SRO inside their school district. And I know from watching the TV, they said that the individual, when he was finally stopped, still had 6 or 7 rounds on him. I don't remember the exact number, but that's one of the things that it allows us to have is that person on our campus on a regular basis. So, but at the same time, it builds that relationships, and that's another set of eyes in the district as well.
So the ambassadors are not armed.
Correct, they're not armed.
The school resource officer will be armed.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. McNatt, I have a question. I know that initially we had a partnership for this position, and the district was responsible for paying half the salary, and either the city or the police station, I believe it was the city, paid the other half. Is that going to be the terms of this agreement, or is the district responsible for the 100% of the salary?
So the district would be responsible for, looks like for one semester would be approximately 35,000, and it would end in the summer, so the officer would return to the city when school is out. So I do not believe that the total cost of, as you see here in your motion, of $70,519 is the true total cost of the officer, because of all the professional development and training and benefit package. So I do believe that there is a slight partnership, and due to the fact that they're not going to be with the district for the entire year because of summer. So there is some shared value in having that person.
I guess let me clarify, please. My question is, the annual cost is $70,519. Is that cost 100% absorbed by the district, or will it be like it was previously, where the district pays 50% of that 70,000 and the city pays the other 50%?
Well, because that we are only going to use it for second semester, then it is the 100%, but I don't think it is 100% because they're using them in the summer.
No, okay, so the motion.
Out of that $70,519, that's an annual cost.
Right.
They're projecting that for the remainder of the year, because it's not a full year, it would be $35,000 to us.
But this is a 3-year, is this going to be a 3-year agreement we're entering into?
Yes.
Okay, so we're entering into a 3-year agreement that is an annual cost of $70,519 with a 2% increase the second year and another 2% increase for the third year. And for the remainder of this year, it will be a prorated amount of $35,000 to $36,000. But every year after that, it is the full amount with the annual 2% increases. My question is, the full amount, is the district paying 100% of that, or are we paying half of the cost and the city paying the other half?
We are paying 100% of the 41 weeks,
Okay, thank you.
if that helps, as it says there in the last line of the motion, which represents 100% of the cost for 41 weeks.
Madam President,
Yes,
I think there was
Mr.
some controversy with this in the previous years where there wasn't clarity, interim superintendent, that the prorated amount and the increase, okay, should not have been on the full amount, but on the prorated amount in terms of what the district is responsible for. And so that's what she's asking. The President Powell is asking the portion for the district that is more clear, because in the contract that we had previous was not clear in terms of it being a shared.
It was shared.
A
right?
shared, okay, it's not at 100%, it should have been, is that a shared appointment with the district, okay?
But this reads that it won't be shared, it would be totally.
So if that's reading that is a total 100%, okay, regardless if the officer is with the district or not. So the question is, are we still liable for the 100% when the officer is not with the district, or are we at the shared amount? And so that's what needs to be clear.
So.
It is a share.
Let's look at, the cost on number 4. It says the SRO program cost shall be divided on an equal basis between the city of Romulus and the Romulus Community School District, with the following stipulations though. So that's on, number 4, line item.
Thank you for that, Mr. Chairman. So this is shared.
Okay.
Madam President.
And that's important that
I have a question,
we
please.
make that known. Yes, Mr.
So it is a shared cost, yes.
And one of the other things that we ran into with the last contract was whether or not we're picking up the benefits. It does not mention that in the contract. It says, I mean, this, number 4, looks like it addresses the salary portion of it. But before, we were actually, there was conflict whether or not we were covering the benefits as well. So I think that there needs to be some clarity on that.
Right, I remember that was, so, yeah, let me say, so this amount that we see, that actually is 50% of the cost. So, the 70,000 annual, that represents our 50%. Mr. McNatt, I know another concern that we had, because we had tabled the SRO program, we were going to have a study session because we were out remotely in the summer of 2020. When would the SRO start? Would they wait until we're back in person? And also, what are the responsibilities of the SRO? That was another issue that we had discussed as a board, that there wasn't any clearly defined duties and how that person would be utilized. There was questions over, are they doing truancy, or is our social worker doing that? Are they going to all the buildings as needed, or just primarily at the high school? So do we have a list of what the expectations of the SRO are?
Yes, we can work on that with the building principals. A lot of times you'll see them be visible in the hallways and maybe go talk to the elementary classrooms. And that's an area of curriculum and working about relationships. And I'm going to call Mr. Henry up to share a little bit more on this. At this time, he's going to help me answer this question.
Can I ask a question? The last paragraph of number 2, the motion, it says that the supervision of the SRO is the responsibility of the police chief. Does he set the hours? Does he tell them what schools? So,
Okay, hold
are
that.
they our employees? Or, you know what I'm saying?
They are not our employee. The police chief is in charge of the supervision, the training, the placement, and all of the regulations. We are in partner with them, but the police chief is the supervisor. Mr. Henry, you please.
Yes. How the school resource officer has worked over the past few years in our district is that the individual was housed at the high school, but he was responsible for visiting. He usually did a wellness check at all the schools at least once a week. If there were other issues, pressing issues that arose at other schools outside the high school, he was there immediately. When we transitioned from having truancy going through social workers, when there were high numbers of truancy or we needed to, principals suggested wellness checks at homes, the school resource officer would go do that by recommendation. So although he or she would still be a city employee, they definitely work on our time schedule because their assignment from the city is to our school district.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. And also during times of crisis, that would be the first officer we would call. And I know when talking to one of the principals today, I had that principal call the local law enforcement. And so at this time, it would be notifying the SRO. So we would have that direct communication. The chief has been great. I love working with him. He answers my calls, my texts. But at the same time, we would have an officer on site. So,
Madam President, I think the issue with the benefits that our trustee Terrell brought is important for us to make sure that we have clarity on it. I would think that if the officers with us 50%, then the benefits will probably be at 50% of whatever that prorated amount is. If I'm not mistaken, that's how it was handled before.
So would you like to sit this and table for more information?
This is important,
Right.
okay? So I'm not saying that we should necessarily hold it up for that, but I think that if there's some amendments to the motion for that need, we could consider.
Right, and that's what I'm trying to read through, because I know that, we had tabled this and requested a study session previously because, there were some needs that the district had, that I know, the acting superintendent had brought, but they weren't covered, and so we were going to discuss and customize this and make sure that we were meeting our student needs and our building needs with this. I'm looking for that, I don't see it in here, but whatever, the pleasure of the board, I just don't know how much flexibility we will have.
I think our administrators could work. They have what our concerns are. I think our administrators could do
Okay.
this, and then they could bring it back. We still have time between now and the end of the month. They could bring it back to the board with, some of the things that we have mentioned here.
Sure.
I don't think that we as a board should get totally involved in that. That's administrative.
Oh, absolutely, I'm just
Okay.
asking, do we have the flexibility of adjusting that? I was looking, but have you
So we've
spoken
made our
with, Mr.
recommendations.
McNabb?
If I've spoken with,
I mean, with the city or with the, police chief about this SRO role?
yes,
Okay. And we can customize that based on if we're remote or in person, and,
yes,
Okay,
yes,
great.
we can.
all right. That was the only board concern before.
So even though if the board votes yes on this tonight, this is not going to take effect tomorrow.
Right.
The chief is going to have to look at his labor force and however you internally post this. I would imagine he would have to probably post it or something. So this is something that by you voting yes, and then he would also need his the mayor and so forth in the township to vote yes as well. So
Right,
So we would just be saying that the board will be.
the board is open and
Yes,
willing
opening
and
up and saying
yes.
what we're saying is that we're being proactive and allowing our administrators
yes,
to handle this and do the necessary due diligence in terms of applying and obliging to getting this done. That's what we'll be doing as
okay,
a board.
got it. And to have that, SRO to do wellness checks on our students is a great bonus too, so. If there are no further discussions or questions, we can vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Romulus School District will contract with the city of Romulus for a school resource officer.
Madam President, may I introduce the next one to you?
Yes.
So the next one is the True Law annual retainer fee. A lot of times this used to appear to school districts in the summer. I think because that's when the organizational meetings typically take place, and a lot of them have started taking place in January. So this is coming to you now for a retainer fee of $2,500. Troon is just one of the many law firms that this district uses. I would say it's, from my understanding, Troon Law Firm is in approximately around 440 school districts in the state of Michigan. They have a great wealth of expertise in all areas: finance, labor, special education, okay, property. So think of all the properties we've got going on, and our attorney, Phil Clark, is involved in that too. So I'm asking that you retain them because they have value to the team of lawyers that we have. And in this case, and there's so many attorneys there that you can, that if one's not there, you can ask for another one if they're not already working on a certain situation for you. For example, like if it's property, I'm always going to go back to Phil Clark. But at the same time, if it's just a quick labor question, you can bounce around till you get one that's available. So it's my recommendation that you approve the retaining fee for True Law Firm. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McNabb. Is there a motion?
Madam President, recommended motion, move that the Board of Education approve the payment of Troon Law Firm, invoice number 274881, in the amount of $2,500 for the annual retainer fee. The rationale, our retainer fee establishes an attorney-client relationship that covers extensive legal resource availability. Troon Law Firm was authorized as a law firm for 2021-22 at our July 12, 21 organizational meeting. The information is in the board packet. The budget implications is a general fund, and the exhibits is also at our availability.
Thank you. Is there support? I will support. Floor is open for questions or comments. Ms. Evans?
Yes, can you tell me why we're doing this 6 months after we awarded them the authorization in July at our organizational meeting? Isn't that when we would normally do all of our attorneys?
Yes, but this is when they send out their annual retaining is they send them out in January. So your organizational meeting is in July. So you're sending this out now. And if you discontinue them in the summer at your organizational meeting, then that's when relationship would end.
Also, Mr. McNatt, the retainer that we pay, doesn't that get us access to different, email blasts or special hourly rates as opposed to if we had not paid that retainer?
Sorry. The hourly rate is lower, correct? Plus, they put on workshops throughout the state on an annual basis. And for a very minimum, like it'll cost like $20, $30 to be able to go to that. You can sit there as a client in a meeting for 3 to 4 hours. Think about it, if you were to call that same attorney for 3 hours, you're looking at $800 and probably even more if you're not on the retainer list. So yes, there is a discount to doing this.
So Ms. Evans, when I'm reading through the letter that Tarun sent, in addition to getting discounted hourly rates, email blasts, newsletters, this retainer makes those extra perks, so to speak, available to the district. This is not a binding agreement that we can't use other law firms. This is separate so that we get those services either for free or discounted hourly rates. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, moved by Kennard, supported by Piles to pay the $2,500 retainer fee for Tarun. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have report of the interim executive director of curriculum, Mr. Nelson Henry.
Good evening again, Board of Education. Thank you so much for the opportunity to serve our community in this capacity. This evening, we're bringing before you the position of Integrated Support Specialist. It is a position that elementary level has requested for a while. Now, elementary principals need support at their buildings, and unlike at the secondary level where we have assistant principals and counselors and social workers and department heads, we do not have that similar structure at the elementary level. All schools are not created equal, so I've been blessed to work in 5 different school districts in 2 different states, and all of the needs are different. So where we look at staff to student ratio, we also have to take into consideration the dynamics and needs of those individual districts as well. So working with the interim human resources director, Dan Scott, and the principals, the elementary school principals, we were able to come up with a working draft of a job posting that's provided for you in the packet. And so we did get some buy-in. It wasn't just something that we force-fed to them, but we listened to them, got some buy-in, looked at some other job descriptions, and tailored something that met our needs here in Romulus. I will not go through the entire job description, but this individual, mainly the responsibilities are that they would provide, this individual would provide at the elementary level, the schools, each of the schools, leadership, assistance and leadership to all staff, students, and parents in establishing a positive, structured, and achievement-oriented school culture. In the absence of the principal, provide building-level leadership for all stakeholders and other duties as assigned by the building principal. So as we make decisions in the best interest of students, there are usually 4 questions that I ask myself. 1, does this benefit students? Yes. Question number 2, does it help staff support students? I believe the answer is yes in this. The next question is, what is it going to cost us? And so the budget implications are ESSER 3 and Title 1. It is a 1.5-year pilot program, so it's not something that we're committed to forever. We're looking to pilot it, see how it works, work the kinks out, and get the support that the principals need. And then the 4th question is, what's the research for this? And so the research is that having this type of an individual, it supports, this person supports discipline and positive behavior and interventions and supports in the school, that it works with outside agencies to provide supplementary resources to our families, and also would help to guide staff training to further develop strategies for supporting student success. So that information is there, and this is what is specifically needed at the 4 elementary schools in our district. What questions might you have?
Madam President,
Yes, Ms. Chairman.
thank you, Mr. Henry, for sharing this information. I just have one question. Is it one integrated support specialist, or is it multiple?
There are 4, one for
Okay.
each of the elementary schools.
Thank
Yes.
you.
And once again, it's a 1.5-year pilot program looking for the rest of this school year whenever we approve it, and then next school year.
I guess I have a question. Just why just at the elementary schools?
So as I start off, Board Member Kennard, there at the secondary level, there are other levels of support and layers of support that they don't have at the elementary level, specifically assistant principals. You have counselors at the high school where you don't have you have counselors at secondary level where you don't have counselors at the elementary level. You usually have social workers. We have social workers at the middle school and high school. And I know we've approved, the board has approved for us to hire social workers, but they don't, the elementary levels don't have the same layers of support as they do at the secondary level.
So this is a 1.5 year pilot, and it is a great need, you know. And first of all, thank you very much for, you know, bringing it, because this is one of the conversations that I've had with many others during my tenure here on the board, and also as I've gone through other districts and had those conversations and looking at some of the things that they're doing at the elementary level, and so forth. But these are ESSER funds that we know in 23 that they go away. So I'm thinking ahead. Okay, I know it's a pilot, and I know it's going to be great. Okay, and so I would just ask that, you know, if the board so desired to pass this, that, you know, we think broader and bigger, and thinking about, you know, the next step and seeing, because I would not want to see something come to the district, and then it's working, and then we run into something and we got to stop. Okay, so you're in the position, so at the same time, I'm looking at the future strategy, all right? So I'm just going to put that out there. I think this is great, and I think that from what I've observed, you know, from other school districts and talking, that this will be very beneficial for our students.
One of the things is that, you know, we do have the extra funds, if I could say it that way, the extra financial support with the ESSER funds. We might be in a position, we'll work to be in a position to be able to possibly repurpose some title dollars in 2023 and thereafter. Hopefully, student enrollment will increase. We know that where there are students, there are dollars. So we're definitely looking to meet an immediate need, but fortunately, you have somebody who sits in this seat. I definitely am a future forecaster.
So you have a plan.
We've started working on it. We started working on it.
We're working on it, okay, all right.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. In reading through this, a lot of the responsibilities read a lot like the current learning specialists that are in each elementary building. So how does this position, how is it differentiated from what the learning specialists currently do, or are we keeping both, and this in addition to, or?
Absolutely. We're keeping both in addition to, and one of the things, the learning specialist has more of the academic focus. This individual has more of a behavioral community partnership, PBIS, environment, culture, climate focus. So although they may assist, these individuals may assist with academic things because we're all things academic, their main responsibility would be that of discipline, really to free the principal up to be the CEO, the instructional leader,
Exactly.
being able to get in the classroom so we can directly impact student achievement.
So will this position, will the district be looking for candidates who are specifically trauma trained or trained in restorative practices or any special niche to better serve our students, since we are looking at behavior and oftentimes things are interpreted as behavior that aren't behavior at all?
We do have some of those things listed under the preferred qualifications, but we also have some resources set aside that if we need to send them to REIS or other places to get those trainings, we could do that. And since I double as the district PBIS coordinator, we have some funds. All of our elementary schools and middle schools receive grants from Wayne RISA, and they offer training specifically for PBIS that we have access to because we're members. So they would have access to that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Henry. I know that there'd been a request, since this is a working draft, and the first time that the board was seeing this, that this be an FYI. Is that the pleasure of the board to continue with that? Okay. Next, we have unfinished business. I believe the only item left for unfinished business was the Hayti property. Mr. McNatt, if we could get an update on that purchase agreement. Has it been executed? And if not, do we need to bring that back to the board? I don't know the dates on that.
I'm trying to picture this, and this is why I've told Mr. Garland, it's not on you, but why sometimes I need to go to that property and visit it again there. And I'm thinking of the conversations I had with Phil Clark, and I did not have a chance to talk to him today. I'll have to reach out and see where we're at with that. Because at one time I said something to him that I'm going to wait for you to tell me to sign the final document. So let me double check with Phil Clark and see, and maybe it's already been signed. I just don't remember because him and I are working through the Beverly, the Merriman, the Haiti, and so Hayti.
Right.
So let me double check with him.
Yeah, Hayti was the one that we approved the sale. It
It was
$305,000
$305,000
with A2 equity.
and it was early November.
Yep,
So
the 8th, right. So
I believe I signed whatever he would have told me to go ahead and sign at this
Okay.
point and present to the board. So
okay,
let me
great.
double check with him.
Okay,
and
so
I
you
will-
haven't heard from that buyer then?
And I will email you back
Okay, thank you
that
for that.
response.
Great, thank you very much. Moving on, report of the board president. Tonight, we have 2 candidates for interim superintendent, and so we will introduce each of them. And board members, we have documents in our board packets, resumes, letters, and different documents that were submitted by each candidate. I will actually allow the candidates to speak for themselves. You can do it best. Mr. McNatt, you can go ahead. And Mr. McNatt has been with us. He was with us in the summer, in July, for a couple months, and then came back the end of September.
Anything in particular you want me to talk about?
Whatever you would sell it.
Okay. So in my career, I've been a teacher, a principal, a business manager, a special education director for a short period of time, having that title, many hats. And so I've been able to talk to our administration team in the various arenas that we've been in. I was fortunate enough to be asked to come in June through July when the superintendent was out on medical leave, and then was asked to come back at the end of September. So we've been working together as a team. I think we've developed some good relationships. There's a lot of things that we have in motion and the momentum, and I'd like to continue in carrying out this until you find your permanent replacement. At this time, I would just like to say that I've enjoyed working with all of them as well, And I do currently hold a teaching and superintendent license and have shared with you my MESB transcripts as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Do we have any questions, comments from board members? Okay. I wouldn't be me if I didn't have a question, Mr. McNatt. So we talked a lot about us coming together as a board and really focusing on students going forward. So my question to you would be, you've seen firsthand our fracture, the broken trust, but you also see the need to serve students. So my question would be, what do you see going forward as a way for our board to tear down, to rebuild, come together as a team of 8 to maximize our effectiveness and have a positive impact on students?
I think we've talked about that, you know, that this board is divided, fractured, cracked, whatever you want to say, that, you know, we've heard the community say there's a gang of 4 and a team of 3. And so one of the things that I've asked over the last couple months with you, and then I think I mentioned it on my last board meeting here in July, that I'd like to see committees formed. And I'd like to see the committees where there's not 3 from one side sitting at the table or having a telephone conversation, but yet that committee would be diverse amongst the different views of the Board of Education. That would be one. The second is, I do believe strongly that there needs to be a board superintendent workshop where roles and responsibilities would be first discussed there before it came to the complete board, so that the board and superintendent, and I've taken those courses, but I think we also need a facilitator to have a discussion on what those are. We also need to talk about communication and how that's done. The difference from a call to a text to an email, the time of day, how many texts. And I think a lot of times that would be reduced if you had those committees, because you knew you were coming up on a meeting, you could hold that question. There are times when the number of emails come in at a certain time, it makes it difficult to go ahead and follow up with that at the time that the board member wants because of the other responsibilities happening within the district. So that's one. At the same time, I believe, and you've heard it from the survey from the staff as well as the community, that they see that the district has a disconnect between the Board of Education and the staff in the community. And I think at this time, a professional development such as Our Community Listens would be something that would be very beneficial for everyone to sit down at the table, not just MESB coming in and speaking and doing a presentation and doing maybe even a follow-up, and then they're good, don't get me wrong, but I think at the same time, something a little bit more deeper with your staff at the table, with your community at the table. Would you have an invite? And you would sit around with 20 to 25 people. And those are not 1, 2, and 3 days necessary back to back, but it would take over a period of time. You are not going to repair the relationships with a magic wand or overnight. It is going to take time. And with that, one of the key elements is open communication and complete transparency. It is my belief, and you've seen this in some of your emails, if one member asks, then all 7 of you are getting the same information. Because if one member asks for it, then all 7 of you should know what is being told. So.
Thank you.
I have a question from Mr. McKnight. So, Rama has had a historical declining enrollment situation before COVID, after COVID, during our ups and downs as a board over the years. This has been something that has been a part of the district for quite a while. So it just didn't start with all the things that has transpired in the last 8 months, 1 year, 2 year, year and a half, so on and so forth. So my question to you would be, looking at today's educational system, Romulus, the healing, the the bonding, the coming together, as you have just presented to us, what would you and how would you look at our declining enrollment from previous to today to looking at tomorrow? Would be some of your thoughts in terms of what do you see that vision being, and how would you think? I know you don't have the answers today, but I'm quite sure you've had to have looked at some of the data in terms of looking at it from the curriculum, looking at it from the enrollment piece, and then at the climate of the whole district as well. So how would you take that challenge on?
So I've been a part of a superintendent position with a great team in 2 previous districts that actually increased enrollment. So I've done that. And it takes not just the money and marketing, not just the flyers, not just the robocalls, not just the cards, but it takes the complete package. So one of the things is that you give your staff points of pride to talk about, because as you know, they're talking in this community already. So what are they talking about? So it's time to move on and give them something more positive. Let's talk about the student data. As one administrator once told me recently, please, when you get a chance at the microphone and everyone's watching us on YouTube, would you let them know that's what's happening at the board meeting? It's not what happens in the classrooms. It doesn't represent Rama's community schools as a whole. That's what's happening at the board level. The teachers are doing their job. They love their kids. The administrators are helping their teachers and their staff grow and take care of the students. It is your community's most prized possession. Ask Oxford community. So with that being said, we need our staff, we need our board to start speaking more positive about the school district. And that's why I think one of the things is to have our community listens comes back in. Or not back in, but invite them in to build that relationship with the entire organization. And then from there, you start doing the things where you start getting parents involved. I know we're not in Neola School District, but I almost had this memorized at one time. I think it was Board Policy 2200 when you're a Neola School District, but it talks about having a parent involvement plan. And I think that's one of the things that we would have to do is we would have to create, even though we don't have a board policy per se, but we would have to have a parent involvement plan. Let me ask you this. If you own a restaurant, if you own a business, such as a gas station, where would you buy your gas? Where would you go to dinner? You buy it from your own business, right? How much more invested are parents sometimes when they're involved? So increase the involvement. One of the ways to do that is creating a hiring procedure. This is how we're going to hire staff. This is our procedure. And in that procedure, it says you will have a parent involved. You will have a parent involved in your school improvement plan. Start getting the parents involved in it. I think they're ready for it. I think they really want to be a part of it. They really want to see something talk positive here. We have a presentation plan coming up starting in 2022 now, where the principals are coming back in and they're going to begin talking about their buildings. Okay, so they're going to be talking about their successes that's happening. That's going to be another thing that's going to happen in the very near future. Some of the programs I've implemented in the past was an employee of the month. It got the staff involved. People would recommend their peers, give them something positive to talk about again. They would recommend their peers. We'd get the list. It'd be the HR director in my past. We look it over and we would pick 2. We'd go to the classroom. Do you know it's the only time that people wonder why an HR director and superintendent are walking into the classroom together? Then after a while they start saying, oh my goodness, it's me. And see the staff cry about it because they're so happy to be recommended by their peers. Do a student recognition where you're bringing a team, when you're bringing someone who broke a school record in athletics, or a quiz bowl team, or some level of success, or a principal who said what they've recently accomplished in their presentation or their club is worthy to be talked about. Bring them here, give them a certificate, give them a little lapel pin with a Rama's logo. I passed so many of those out in one district. When I started passing them out at meetings, one kid said to me, I have 4 of these now. I said, and I know your name, you know? So implementing programs like that help, one, increase the morale, but also increase a partnership between this table and the buildings as well. And parents come in, right? I've had choirs come in and sing a song. Who comes in? 10 kids. Who else comes in? 20 parents. Why are they here? See the kids sing or play their instrument and get their recognition, and then they leave. There are a slew of different programs out there. Does it mean that every program that I've ever done in every other district, and there's more, I'm going to bring here? I think it's our time that we start talking about some of those things. So.
Thank you, Mr. McNatt. Our second candidate is Dr. Donald Weatherspoon. Thank you for joining us this evening, sir. And I take the podium. I think the mic is on.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, members of the board, community.
Dr. Weatherspoon, we're streaming onto YouTube, so if you would make sure that the mic picks up your voice so those who are joining us remotely are able to hear you. Thank you.
Am I technically correct now? Thank you. Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, members of the community. I am Don Weatherspoon, and I am I guess the outsider tonight, but I'm not really an outsider. I did my student teaching in Inkster several years ago. And one of my strongest mentors during that time, when I was in my master's program, was from Romulus. So I learned a great deal about Romulus and Romulus's work with students and in the community. And by your name, Community Schools, I also am a Mott Fellow, a former Mott Fellow. So community education is ingrained in my system. So I just want to give you a little bit of background about my education and then my work history and why I'm here. I have my PhD from the University of Michigan, my master's from Eastern Michigan University in early childhood education. My PhD is in early childhood education administration. And my undergraduate degree is from Michigan State University in law enforcement. You'll say, how did you go from law enforcement to education? I'll explain that in a second. Most recently, my last job, if you want to call it that, was I was the consent agreement consultant in the school district of Benton Harbor. I'm also a former consent agreed consultant in the school district of Pontiac. I'm the former emergency manager for the school district in Highland Park and a former emergency manager in the school district of Muskegon Heights. I am the former assistant state superintendent, and in the Department of Education, I had several, let's say, fractured, financially stressed school districts in terms of being sent in by the superintendent to assess a problem and to recommend a direction. Not all those directions worked out well, and so some of those districts still exist and are still struggling, and others have not, they have addressed their problems and are progressing well. I am also a former adjunct professor in the School of Criminal Justice at Michigan State, where I worked for 21 years. And I'm a former, let's say, deputy director in 5 state departments in the state of Michigan. So I'm retired from both state of Michigan as well as school employees. Now, the reason why I'm here is because I have an abiding interest in the education of children, and in particular, young children. And one of the things that I think is the biggest challenge for all of us is that a child who does not read when he or she does not graduates from high school is probably one of the biggest sins we can commit. So I believe that whatever it takes to put a graduated child in the job market who can read is going to be successful. That means that your district is successful. That means your employees will feel good about what they've done. It means that your community will have confidence in what it did in terms of maintaining its support for its school system, its employees, and most of all, its children. One of the reasons why I'm also here is because, as Debbie Starr pointed out to you earlier, you're at a crossroads. And the crossroads is you can continue in the direction you're going. And I think it's a foregone conclusion of what you can predict that'll be, because several of the districts around the state have faced similar situations. And you have read in newspapers what's happened to them. I'm not suggesting that's going to happen, because I believe this community is much stronger than that. And that's why I believe you're hearing a lot of pushback from people saying, listen to what we're saying. And you absolutely have to listen. So if we don't have a listening ear, we're certainly not going to produce any results that are going to be productive on any side of the aisle. So I believe that if I'm here as your interim, we have to start that discussion along several lines. One of them is I've been fortunate to be a part of product of the Institute for Restorative Practice with what they call listening circles. And it's a result of what's happened with people who have been adversely affected by COVID, and they ask, what am I going to do? How do I confront the problems that are so monumental not only to me, but to my community, to my colleagues, etc.? I've been a facilitator in one of those groups, and perfect strangers have come together to talk about it in their community, as it affects them in their community, and amazing, I guess, stories and experiences come out. So then the question is, what do you do with that information? Well, after you've listened a while, maybe your own deep-seated feelings about how, in this instance, COVID affected you, you had to seek a different path in terms of communicating, collaborating, and vision setting. And it touched on, the things that it touched on were religion, trust, confidence building, etc. The other deep-seated thing that I am very concerned about as I try to find information about this district is where you are financially. I can't find a budget that you're currently operating under. And I suspect you probably have passed a budget for the current fiscal year that was a continuation of the previous fiscal year. So that suggests to me that you're operating under an assumption that there's money, but you don't know which pot the money is coming from for the decisions that you're making. And if that is a fundamental deficit in terms of knowledge, I don't blame people for saying, what are you doing and why are you doing it? But so my work with you, if I'm selected, will be centered around a couple things. One, you've got some contractual people in place because your central office is decimated. So the contractual people, and one of whom I know that because I've worked with this person before, will try to get to the bottom of where your budget is. That means getting a budget before you and the community, and getting the proper budget amendments in so that you know where you stand financially. The second one is, when you come together to make policy decisions, as boards are supposed to do, you will be informed of where you stand, why you're standing there, and what you're going to do. As I heard the curriculum presentation before in terms of reaching out for a position for a year and a half, you kind of like to know whether or not that's going to be effective, and you need to know what your financial plan is, and then what the results of that plan that you implemented, and then be informed about how and why you want to continue it or discontinue it or modify it. So I would encourage you, whether you select me or not, that you get your money right, because that is the path of destruction that you don't want to take. I will be open, I will be communicative, I'll be collaborative, I'll be whatever it takes to get down to the bottom line of, one, getting your money straight, helping you with your governance, working with the board in a way that we can have conversations, and we can have as many disagreements as you want, but if it's not child-oriented, it's probably not going to make much difference what kind of conversation we have. So if we come to the table understanding where each of us are coming from with regard to children, the district, and the community, I think we'll be fine. But it's not going to happen until you at least put down the guard of, I don't trust you, I don't like you, I don't want you, I don't want to see you, etc. Because I'm not here to question anybody's motivation. So with that, I will entertain any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Weatherspoon. Are there any questions from board members?
Thank you for your presentation and for coming in tonight. You mentioned reading and the importance of reading. What would you do different that would make a great improvement and impact with our students? What would you do different as it relates to reading?
Well, as an interim superintendent, there's not much you can do because the ship has been launched, and changing course midstream is not going to be effective. But however, I would ask the administrators in charge of reading, what are you doing and how are you measuring it? What's the level of participation? Which goes to a couple other issues. For example, while you're remote, are you monitoring how many students are online? And what are those students doing? What kind of feedback are you giving to those students? In some districts that I'm familiar with, the teachers are using their time to go to students' homes in teams and to engage the parents and the students and say, okay, what are the issues that the child is faced? Is your child facing, or children, if they have more than one child in the school? And how can we be of greater assistance? But we have to have that conversation, because since I'm not familiar with what's going on here, we can't implement anything that would have an immediate impact unless we talk.
So I guess I have to ask the same question that I asked of Mr. Sean, our interim superintendent, and that is related to the declining enrollment. It's not no secret. Every district is facing that challenge. We definitely are here. And so my question would be, how would you, I know you said you were looking into our website and you're looking for the dollars and, the budget and so forth. So I'm quite sure you went and looked at our enrollment numbers over the years. And so from that, what would you have to share with us in terms of the accountability and measurement and the engagement as a district whole for where we are now, from what you might have gathered or may have some insight on that you want to share with us moving as we attack that source?
I'm going to have to use approximate numbers because I don't have the FTE count, current FTE counts for your district. But there's a decline in enrollment across the state. So there's an average. So let's just say, for the sake of discussion, decline in enrollment is 4% per year. So if you use that as a norm, then you look at your district and you say, we're at 7% per year. Then you have to ask yourself why. And the second question is, where are those children going? And how many children are they taking, are left in that family that are going to be going with them? Mm-hmm. And then the next question you would ask is, what is the probability of their returning to the district? Mm. And in most instances, it's not very good. So to get back to the root of the problem, why they're leaving in the first place, there'd be a host of problems. And again, you would get that data through input from the community and saying, I don't like what's going on, or you're not offering my child what I think my child needs, and build from there. That the data has to come from the community. So you gather the data from the community, and then utilize that in terms of working with your administrators, with your instructors, and then bring the policy question to you as board members.
Dr. Weatherspoon, you touched on the question that I had asked Mr. McNatt about as far as bringing us together, and you talked about we must listen, and that's a starting point, and then the listening circles, and then what do we do with that information and seek a different path. So you touched on that, so I'm going to ask a different question. We right now are 100% remote. We were 100% remote at the beginning of COVID. We've gone back and forth. A lot of the complaints that we hear is that parents and students don't feel like they're getting the same education remotely as they get in person. Yet regardless of how we deliver instruction, we have to be equitable and we have to have high quality instruction. So what do you see as an opportunity for Romulus Community Schools to do better in delivering high quality instruction remotely, not just now, but if we go forward and that becomes more of the rule than the exception, what are the opportunities that we could seize in making that better?
I'll use myself as an example. I had to teach a course remotely, and I found that I was not a very good actor. And after some training, I was able to convey the material that I wanted, and it was bisynchronous, so it means I received feedback from 13 sites simultaneously, and it helped me immensely. So my first recommendation would be is I have to go to the people who are delivering the instruction. And whatever resources they need, you got to find a way to use your COVID money, ESSER's money, or whatever's available, and direct it to them in terms of the tools they need to deliver their lessons, etc. The second part of it is you won't know how effective that is unless you get measurement and feedback. So that data is going to be very critical. So one thing to say I'm delivering reading instruction, but what's the engagement? How do I measure it? And what does that data tell me that I should be doing differently? Mm. So it's not for me to determine that.
Right. Thank you. Are there any other questions from board members? Okay. Seeing none. Thank you, Dr. Weatherspoon, very much.
Thank you for inviting me
joining us tonight and
this evening. Thank you.
So we have two candidates tonight. We also have motions for both candidates for a contract. Is there any final questions or comments or concerns from board members before we proceed with that? Okay. Seeing none, do we have a motion? I move that the Board of Education authorize Interim Superintendent Weatherspoon to contract and otherwise work with former Interim Superintendent Sean McNatt. I'm sorry, I've got the wrong. Ms. Kennard, do you have the motion for the? I apologize. I move that the Board of Education contract with Dr. Donald Weatherspoon for interim superintendent duties at a per diem rate of $1,200 a day with reimbursement for necessary and actual mileage, lodging, and meals, with an ending date of June 30th, 2022, and/or termination upon 10 days' notice. The rationale is that Dr. Weatherspoon has a wealth of experience in managing public school districts with business and financial problems, having worked as a consent agreement consultant for both Pontiac School District and Benton Harbor area schools, and as an emergency manager for the Highland Park School District. He will not receive district-paid insurance nor sick, personal, holiday, or vacation days. Is there support?
Support, Kennard.
Moved by Pyle, supported by Kennard. The floor is open. If anyone has any final questions or comments. Seeing none, Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll for this, please?
Kennard,
Yes.
Terrell, Bergeron, German,
Yes.
Piles,
Yes.
Evans, yes.
Motion carries. Dr. Weatherspoon, thank you for your interest, and welcome to Romulus Community Schools. We are glad to have you and look forward to working with you. Mr. McNatt, we thank you. You have stepped in and helped us keep our heads above water during very tumultuous times, and we are all appreciative of that and appreciate everything that you have done to help unite us and keep us moving forward as a district. We do need to have a transition period before we just hand this off, so I will follow with, I move that the Board of Education authorize Interim Superintendent Weatherspoon to contact and otherwise work with former Interim Superintendent Sean McNatt for the purposes of transition as needed through January 31st, 2022, and that Sean McNatt be paid for this transition work at an hourly rate based on his former per diem rate of $734 a day. The rationale is that Interim Superintendent Weatherspoon would benefit from input from former Interim Superintendent McNatt to assure an efficient transition of responsibilities. Is there support?
Support, Kennard.
Moved by Pyle, supported by Kennard. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
German, Terrell, Kennard,
Yes.
Piles,
Yes.
Bergeron, Evans, yes.
Motion carries. Next, we are at the Comerica Securities Corporate Certification Signers. This was an action that we took in August 10th, where we had named the superintendent and board secretary as signers on the Lorena Burton Scholarship account, and we need to redo that. So I move that the Board of Education approve Interim Superintendent Dr. Weatherspoon and Board Secretary Susan Evans as account signers on the Comerica Securities Corporate Certification Lorena Burton Scholarship Fund. Is there support?
Support, Kennard.
Moved by Pyle, supported by Kennard. Any comments? Yes, Ms. Terrell. It's okay.
There were some stipulations relative to this scholarship fund, and I don't know the full details of it, but are we adhering to the legalities as far as the usage and who's allowed to sign off on this?
So we don't make any decisions about the distribution of the scholarship. I believe it's the Carr family that still oversees that. What this is we need the interim superintendent and board secretary to be signers on this, because the auditors need to have the balance on this scholarship account in order to complete the audit, and so that's been a holdup. Is there anything else? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries. Last, communications from board members. Do we have any? Mr. Bergeron? Ms. Terrell? Ms. Sherman? Ms. Evans? Ms. President Kennard?
No, I would just like to say to Interim Superintendent Sean McKnight that it was indeed the board's pleasure of having you work with us. And you can't hear me? I was talking to the Interim Superintendent Sean McKnight. I want to thank you for your services through the months that you've been with us. Thank you very much.
I would like to echo that. We were unique, and you came in and you came into a storm and brought calm and helped us navigate, and you are very much appreciated for that. And I do want to thank you for being at the helm and helping us with that. Thank you very much, Sean. One thing before we close, I do want to remind board members, we received an email. MASB is going to do training at RISA coming up on March 24th, and then again on March 31st. And it is open to board members and all the districts within the ISD. They also offer these classes at a 50% discount when we go to RISA to take them. So if any board members are interested, obviously see Paula, but I encourage everyone to look at the courses being offered, and if possible, let's try and take those as a group. So we're not just getting the learning, but we're hearing it together, we're talking the same language, we're applying the same information. There's Civility, a tool for conflict management, and Data First, high school and beyond, are being offered on March 24th. And then on March 31st, there is Collaborative Conversations for Effective Decision-Making, and also Communicating Effectively in Difficult Times. So if any board members are interested in doing that individually or as a group, please let me know, and most importantly, let Paula know so she can get us registered.
Madam President, are these workshops during the day, or, is during the work day? The 24th of March is a Thursday?
Yes.
Is it date during the day, or is what?
No, they usually offer them at night, a 6 p.m. class. They usually do. They'll offer, they'll have dinner and, a dinner, and then we go into the different rooms for the training, and there will be board members from districts within the ISD. But they've always been evening classes. Okay, and on that note, motion to adjourn.
Support, Kennard.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
None.
Okay, meeting is adjourned at 8:00.